Hello, this is Kevin Shaw again, Manager of Family Care with Mid-South Transplant Foundation, back for another episode of Ask A, where we interview members of Mid-South Transplant Foundation and find out about their roles here in the organization and how they give hope and give life to people in the community. And today we have someone who's a member of the Family Care Specialist team, and her name is Tanya Andrews. Hello, Tanya. How are you?
Hi, Kevin. I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us today for today's episode. First off, let's talk a little bit about what is a family care specialist.
Well, a family care specialist is someone who is kind of a first touch grief care provider, first of all. We speak with families immediately following the loss of their loved one. And we are there to serve as a liaison or a bridge between the hospital staff, the medical examiners, the funeral homes, and the families who have lost their loved ones. We have an opportunity to find out if the loved one is a registered organ and tissue donor. If they're not, we have an opportunity to evaluate whether they would be a potential candidate for donation. And then we speak directly with those loved ones, those family members, to help begin the process of organ and tissue donation.
Now, the couple of episodes ago, we spoke to Don Michael, who's on the family care organ side, and he and his team members' role is to talk to families about specifically about organ first, organ tissue, then eye donation. And you and your team, you all speak to families first about tissue and then eye donation. So, not to get too technical, but what is the difference between tissue donation and organ donation?
Well, it's a little bit different in that tissue donation occurs after death, and it's after after the heart has stopped. Tissue donation involves donating more than you can ever imagine. To be perfectly honest, you're saving and enhancing the lives of hundreds of individuals potentially, as well as giving sight to 2 individuals. And what we look at is in the eye realm, we're able to use the cornea and the whole eye. And so both corneas would give sight to 2 individuals. Then on the tissue side, we're able to utilize gifts such as heart valves, bone, tendons, ligaments, veins, and the skin. The largest organ on the body is the skin. And so through tissue donation, you're able to donate those items as well.
Now, I think a lot of times when people hear organ donation, they're more familiar with that concept, and tissues sometimes is like organ and tissue, and they may not quite understand that tissue involves so many other things like you just mentioned. How does that affect a funeral? If somebody decides they want their loved one to donate tissue, does that interfere with funeral plans? Or
actually, typically an individual who donates tissue there's no impact on the funeral. It is a relatively quick process, and it does not impact the overall appearance of a loved one either. So a tissue and eye donor is still able to have a standard open casket viewing if they would like. And they're still going to see that loved one that they remember. The only thing that we do ask is that they put long sleeves on that individual to kind of camouflage some of the scarring that may remain following donation. It's very minimal, and it really does not change their appearance.
So I know the organization works with about 50 different hospitals. So can you describe, if there's such a word as a typical day, can you describe a typical day in the life of a family care specialist?
Let's see, a typical day, there's never a typical day. Everything's changing, which is kind of fun. For a family care specialist, a day is never the same. But the typical process that we have is when someone's loved one passes, our call center initially receives a phone call from a nurse, and they get the basic information from the nurse, and they send us, the family care specialists, what we call a referral. And that gives us the basic information about the individual who has recently passed. and allows us to then determine if they're an registered organ and tissue donor or not, take a look at some of their medical background to determine if they're a suitable candidate for donation, and then we contact the nurse and gather more information. If that individual is a suitable candidate, we then have the opportunity to speak with the family members. And when we speak to the family, we then are addressing any concerns that they have, helping them with the beginnings of a grief process, and then guiding them through the donation process. And part of that is completing medical and social history. And so we get to learn a lot about these individuals who have passed as we learn what their lifestyles were like and what medical conditions they may have had. And then from there, we're able to interact with our tissue recovery team and send out a team to help recover those beautiful gifts that our donors provide.
Now, is there an average number of referrals or calls that you get in a particular shift, particular day, or is it about how many would you say you might receive?
On a busy day, we individually can receive 10 to 15 calls on a busy day. On a slow day, during a shift, we may only receive, 4 or 5. It really depends on the day.
Now, I also know that you have kind of spearheaded and have really taken over the aftercare as far as, it's wonderful that a family helps and decides to help others. But as far as what we do as an organization to maintain communication with the family, can you talk a little bit about the aftercare program?
Absolutely. So just as important as our donors are to giving life and enhancing life, their families are valuable as well. They have gone through a loss. And so we have to respect that and honor that. So for a period of about 12 months following donation, we walk beside the family who remains and help them with their grief process. We also get to share with them the hope and the excitement of learning where some of their loved ones' donations have gone and the age or the geographic location of those that their gifts have impacted. Through aftercare, we just remain connected. There's a period of time where life is really busy for someone who's lost a loved one. There's funerals and there's phone calls and there's cards and there's always people around. But we at Mid-South Transplant want to be with them once the noise of the world has slowed down and it seems like people have kind of forgotten them as they're getting back to normal life. We don't forget. We walk beside them for that 12 months and help them make those baby steps toward learning to live without that loved one present.
Now, don't mean to put you on the spot, but I know you've worked with a lot of families. Is there a particular family or two that have kind of stood out in your mind as far as the interaction or the experience you had with them?
Absolutely. There are some that really stand out in your mind because they were fun to work with. There's a lot of families that I have the blessing of just hearing laughter.
Yeah, so I don't mean to cut you off, but if somebody's watching this for the first time, they're thinking, all right, someone just died. We're asking for them to donate, and you're saying the word fun. So help people not be too confused about how fun could play into this.
Well, what I want to tell them is as we start to share the stories about their loved one's life, humor comes into play in a lot of cases because they're sharing stories that they remember about this special person. And one that sticks in my mind was a gentleman. One of our health questions is, did your loved one recently have any headaches? When and why? And it stands out to me that he laughed as he talked about his wife having headaches. And he said, yeah, she did. And I said, can you tell me the reason? And he said, well, it was probably because of me. And I think the joy comes from just having some opportunities to share special moments with them. And also as we complete that health screener, sometimes it takes your mind off of the immediacy of the loss and allows you to look at some of the sweet memories that can be really joy-filled, and you find people with a sense of humor.
Yeah, I know you and your teammates' job is difficult because you do have to deal with a lot of sadness and a lot of grief and pain. So What would you say is the most rewarding part of your job, and what keeps you going?
I think for me, the most rewarding part of my job is knowing that we are saving and changing lives. For me to go to work every day, I feel the calling to help people live better. And that means that those who are on the recipient side are living better because they're receiving the gifts that are necessary to save their lives or to enhance their lives. And for those who have been left behind, we're helping them live better by walking beside them and being a support person or support organization for them as they are navigating the grief journey. So it's all, for me, it's all about helping people live better.
Well, Tanya, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule. Your manager's probably going to tell you to get back to work really soon, but I think he's probably a nice guy. So thank you for your time. I want to tell everybody out there to please remember to like, comment, or share on this video with your friends and your family. We want to get the word out there about donation and the benefits of doing so. We ask that you stay on for a little bit longer to watch a video about one of Tanya's coworkers, get a little more information about another family care specialist, and we will see you again next time for another edition of Ask A here at Mid-South Transplant. Have a good day. Thanks.
My name is Abigail Smith. I work at Mid-South Transplant Foundation. I'm a family care specialist. I enjoy helping families go through what is the hardest day of their life and helping them digest what has happened to them and seeing them through the donation process and helping them walk through that. I was able to help multiple families just go through this, and one in particular, I had to help a wife that had lost her husband of 47 years. And she was having a very difficult time with this and needing help and just going through what's the next step. And when I brought up the thought of donation to her, she was very excited. As a tissue donor, her husband was able to help more than 75 people through his tissue donation and bring happiness and joy to other families through this.